Earlier in this session, you heard from my colleague about the development of pro-WEAI. In this presentation, I'm going to report on more detailed findings from one of those studies, specifically C'est la vie, an integrated poultry value chain and nutrition intervention that took place in Burkina Faso, and C'est la vie's impact on women's empowerment. In brief, C'est la vie was a nutrition-sensitive poultry value chain intervention. It aimed to increase the supply of poultry and eggs by training producers and connecting them with resources such as loans and vaccination services. Additionally, it aimed to generate demand for poultry products and other nutritious foods through nutrition counseling and behavior change communication interventions. Thus, primary outcomes were related to the diets of women and children, as well as poultry production, sales, and profits. Additionally, women's empowerment was a secondary outcome, and that's my focus today. There were specific gender-sensitive strategies. Specifically, C'est la vie included community sensitization on women's time use and women's ability to manage their resources. Women were targeted by both the poultry value chain activities and the nutrition BCC component. There was also a trained cadre of women village vaccinators who broke gender norms and were intended to serve as role models in their roles as village vaccinators. To evaluate C'est la vie, we used a mixed methods approach and a cluster RCT. There were two treatment arms, C'est la vie and a C'est la vie plus a wash intensive arm. I present pooled results here because the difference between the two were quite minimal. We collected baseline data in March 2017, and endline data collection began in March 2020 and was paused due to COVID and continued later that year. Additionally, we collected lean season data in 2017 and 2019. We estimate program impact using ANCOVA models that focus on intent to treat. And then we also do an analysis of treatment on the treated using propensity score weighted regression analysis. To measure women's empowerment, we use pro-WEAI. We look at all 12 indicators separately for both women and men, as well as aggregate indicators of their empowerment and gender parity. In the lean season, we collect a subset of these indicators where we hypothesized we would see potential seasonal patterns. So those specifically are self-efficacy and work balance. Moving on to our results. The figures on the left show program impact on the continuous empowerment score and the binary empowerment status for both women and men. We find no significant impact on either the binary or continuous versions for women or for men. On the right-hand side, we also look at the size of the empowerment gap and whether gender parity was achieved in households. Again, we find no significant outcomes on gender parity. In the analysis, when using pro-WEAI, it isn't unusual to see impacts on different indicators going in different directions. So it's important to look at impact by indicator rather than only at the aggregate level. On the left-hand side, the only significant finding we see is a negative impact on perceived mutual respect among household members. This is unexpected. However, it's important to note that depending how strict we are with multiple hypothesis testing, it is no longer significant. And we are continuing to look into this. It may be due to the intervention where women are more aware of disrespectful treatment in the household and are more likely to report it as such. On the right-hand side, we look at indicators for men and find no significant impact on individual indicators. In the interest of time, I'm not specifically presenting either the lean season treatment effects or the treatment on the treated effects. Importantly, We don't see any program impacts on those either. These are, of course, disappointing results, as we had hoped we would see program impact on women's empowerment or on gender parity. It also leaves us with really interesting work to do in terms of considering how such a gender and nutrition sensitive market intervention could be improved so that there is a significant impact on women's empowerment. One of the ways we can consider possible improvements to the program design is by using pro-WEAI as a diagnostic. This figure shows the relative contributions of the different domains of empowerment to the disempowerment of both women and men, and it's split by the control and treatment arm, with treatment on the left, control on the right, and then within each of those, women on the left and men on the right. This figure reveals that the largest contributions to disempowerment are access to and decisions on credit and financial services, work balance, and membership in influential groups. These suggest redesigning an intervention that targets these aspects of disempowerment. Of course, we want to know why there were no significant impacts on women's empowerment. The intervention was a light touch approach. It focused on providing information to producers and consumers and strengthening market linkages. There were no asset transfers, and this is a very resource-poor context. We know that productive asset transfers have been a fundamental building block that is essential but not sufficient for agricultural development programs that aim to empower women. So it's really important to consider these findings in the context of the asset transfer debate, especially for market-based interventions that target poor households. Many funders and implementers are opposed to the idea of being perceived as giveaway programs. It may be important to reframe this debate in terms of the types of contexts or programs where asset transfers make an important and meaningful difference in program outcomes. Additionally, pro-WEAI diagnostics point to the value of focusing on access to credit and financial accounts, improving work balance, and encouraging membership in influential groups. These may be important steps forward for similar programs. Finally, we'd like to express our gratitude to our donors, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and A4NH, the CGIAR research program on agriculture for nutrition and health, led by IFPRI. I look forward to hearing your questions and comments during our discussion time. Thank you.